for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UNX News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we are here every Friday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you have any comments or questions this evening, please drop them in the chat. And if you are listening, then I would suggest going over to YouTube. Look up the UNX Network YouTube channel, and you can see us on video if you would like to do that. Got a couple things coming up here shortly in October. The last weekend of October is the Arkansas Paranormal Expo in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the information for that is on our website at unxnetwork.com. And of course, we have XCon coming up October 30th through November 1st in Springfield, hosted by the UNX Network and Oz UFO. Scott Wolter is the keynote speaker. Of course, you know him from America Unearthed, and we have a lot of other really good top speakers that you don't want to miss. But one of the really cool things we're doing at this event is we're going to have we'll be celebrating our second year anniversary at that time on October 31st, which is our exact second anniversary date for the network. So we're going to have a paranormal Halloween costume party and banquet. So your ticket includes that, plus access to vendors and a lot of other things. So consider that. unxnetwork.com is the place to go to get more information about that. My guest this evening is Mr. Ray Hernandez. Ray was a PhD candidate at the University of California at Berkeley, where he was the recipient of a National Science Foundation PhD fellowship. He is currently the director of the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, or CCRI, an academic research institute comprised of more than 25 PhD academics, medical doctors, and researchers whose mission is to explore the relationship between consciousness research and the phenomenology of paranormal experiences, what CCRI calls the contact modalities. In 2018, Ray and a team of retired PhD academics published an 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, which was the world's first and only comprehensive worldwide academic statistical research study on UFO contact experiencers. Over 4,300 individuals participated from over 125 countries. Welcome to the program, Ray.
Margie, and once again, I apologize for being slightly delayed because I had a personal emergency that I had to deal with for pretty much the entire day. But I'm back on track again.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you were able to join us at the very last second here on UNX News. Of course, you had your own show on the network for a while. You're very familiar with us, and also you've interviewed quite a few people. How did you get interested in starting this Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, Ray?
Well, Margie, as you know, I'm an experiencer. I'm academic. I have an academic background. And after we finished the work of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, and we published that 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, we realized from the data from that research study that much of our research findings contradicts much of materialist ufology. We understood, just like J. Allen Hynek at the end of his life, Dr. Jacques Vallée, Dr. John Mack, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Rudy Shields, all of these individuals for many years have been stating that the ufological phenomenon is both has a physical aspect to it and a psyche or a consciousness-based aspect to it. What we were able to do was we're the first to be able to quantify that. And what we found out was that the overwhelming majority of their experiences can be categorized within the contact modalities. These were consciousness-based phenomena. Yes, they might have seen a few UFOs, they might have seen a few physical beings, but 90% of their experiences were quote unquote paranormal in nature. And so it was at that point that myself and Edgar had passed away by then, Dr. Rudy Shields and some of the other academics in our group, we said, look, what we need to do now is to be able to study the bigger picture of the relationship between consciousness and all of the contact modalities, all of the paranormal phenomenon. And we need to study it just like we did with the UFO phenomenon via the major contact experiencers, because the PhD physicists are not going to tell us what consciousness is about, okay? But someone like yourself, that has undertaken remote viewing, has had astral travel experiences, has numerous experiences via the paranormal contact modalities. As you know, Margie, there are literally thousands of people just in the U.S., major individuals. One friend that we have in common is Dr. Joseph Burks. But I think at that conference, I think you might have met Dr. Melinda Greer. She's a recently retired medical doctor, and her article is prominently featured in our website and in our book, A Greater Reality, which everyone can access for free. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So Melinda is right across the border in Oklahoma. She works in Native American territory and very close to Ozarks. And so she's had everything in the kitchen sink. She's had 2 NDE. She's had 3 Sasquatch sightings, 2 of them very, very up close. She's had out-of-body experiences, astral travel experiences. She's seen different types of beings. She's had several episodes of major missing time. We're not talking about 15 minutes here. We're talking about hours with other people as well. And you name it, she has had it. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these major contact experiencers that have had almost all of the contact modalities. So that's what we want to do, is we want to be able to research these individuals, to ask them a whole boatload of quantitative, qualitative questions, do in-depth interviews. And we believe that after we finish our research study, it'll provide us lots of information as to the nature of our reality.
The experiencers themselves, and me being one, I know this. I have experiences. I know they're real. I do not believe that I have any mental issues that would cause me to have hallucinations, etc. Are most of the people that you've spoken to, do you think that they are have their feet on the ground? They're grounded individuals, and these are things that they're not imagining. Do you believe that they're having real experiences?
But Margie, as you know, you go to these conferences much more than I have. And plus, you've been in this field much more longer than I have as well. And all the people that I've met, and we're talking several hundred major contact experiencers, people like Dr. Melinda Greer, my friend Alberto Hernandez, who was one of the administrators of the DEA. He was in charge of the whole Caribbean for the Drug Enforcement Administration. His wife is a PhD psychologist and also a major experiencer. So medical doctors, you probably know, at least 5 or 6 major experiencers that are medical doctors, just like I do as well. And all of these people are grounded individuals. I was an IRS tax attorney for 25 years, okay? And I always had the highest ratings when my evaluations came. And so, these are people that are grounded, normal people, but yet we're having these experiences. And what we're going to be doing in this upcoming research study is we're also going to be asking them medical health related questionnaires to be able to dismiss once and for all this whole concept of these people are having hallucinations. These people are psychotic in some way. These people are mentally unstable. So we have several PhD psychologists and psychiatrists, MD psychiatrists in our organization. So we're going to be addressing that topic as well.
That's a really good idea. And I'm sure that you're also going to be looking at what kinds of medications these people could be on that might cause something like that.
So that's going to be part of the whole medical history of what medications they were taking when they stopped. And what I have found, you probably can agree with this, is that many people, once you're having these experiences, there was a period in my life where I began to think that I was crazy. Okay. And then I went to a psychiatrist, and this man prescribed for me tons of psychotropic medications that would make me into a zombie. But then I realized, look, my wife is having similar experiences. My daughter's having similar experiences. We cannot all be crazy at the same exact time. Okay. And this started after we engaged with this energy being in our living room and began to see these upfront huge UFOs. So, we knew those were the triggering mechanisms. So I totally ignored him. And what I found out, just like you probably know, Margie, is that a lot of people might start off taking these psychotropic, mind-altering medications from psychiatrists and other medical doctors. And then over time, they realize that their experiences still continue, and so they drop these medications. And then over time, many, many years, they learn to adjust to these experiences. Then they revert back to a normalcy of their life. And that's what we found out with most of these major contact experiencers. They're well grounded, they're living a stable life, and they're not using these psychotropic medications. They stopped many years ago.
How do you feel about the psychiatrists who don't have any awareness or training in this field, and they believe that their patients are having a psychosis of some type? Is there or will there be any effort to reach out to these people to get them more training?
Well, we have in our book, A Greater Reality, almost a 70-page article written by Dr. John Klimo. Dr. John Klimo was a professor of psychology for over 45 years. And so what that article was, Margie, was an article for psychiatrists and psychologists, that they need to become aware of the experiencer of the contact modalities, that this phenomenon is extremely, extremely common. People going out of their bodies, that's very common. People seeing deceased people, very common. The UFO phenomenon, now people are coming out of the woodworks talking about that they also saw UFOs. Near-death experiences, now people are beginning to talk about it. 20 years ago, people would not open their mouths at all about these experiences. So we're learning now that this is part of the nature of our greater reality. And so he wrote an article trying to educate these two groups, medical doctors, in particular psychiatrists, and psychologists, as to this phenomenon. So that's one effort that I have tried to be able to reach out to the group. And also, the field is slowly expanding. For example, we have a subcommittee of our group within our research committee, and there's about 4 or 5 PhD psychologists in the group. And medical doctors, psychiatrists, we have 3 of them in the organization. So this was not the fact 20 years ago, Margie, as you know. So slowly but slowly, the paradigm is starting to change. And hopefully with time, individuals will change. But I feel the same way about, the field of materialist ufology. You go to a UFO conference, and almost all of these speakers are totally clueless as to the complexities of the phenomenon. Their focus is mainly on a physical UFO, on pictures, on videos, on Roswell, Rendlesham Forest, and all this type of nonsense that could only take you so far. I always ask that question: what have we learned in the last 80 years using this approach? And my response is almost nothing, very little. But yet, what did we learn from the 5-year academic research study on 4,300 UFO contact experiencers? We learned a hell of a lot. And what we learned totally contradicts what is circulating in materialist ufology. So I feel the same way about for these materialists as these naive medical doctors and psychiatrists that don't know about the complexities of the phenomenon.
Yeah, and to that, the conferences that I've attended lately are more open-minded, and it seems that the attendees are wanting new information, and they understand the different contact modalities, and the speakers are more open-minded, and they're bringing in these other aspects to these sightings. So I'm glad to see that that's changing, and certainly people will be more receptive to your ideas and your books and the entire organization. I'm glad to see that. I'll tell you what, for people who have not seen you speak before, would you give us a short rundown of how you got involved in this and your experience where you had you and your wife had this extraordinary experience?
Well, I had approximately 4 years of nonstop experiences via the contact modalities. I have called down numerous UFOs, and what appeared were not these little tiny dots in the sky, would be these huge monstrous objects that at will, I told them to change their appearances, and right in front of me, they changed their appearances. That's when I first realized that these were holographic projections and not necessarily physical objects. And Dr. Joseph Burks, who's been working in the field of CE5 since 1992, he has the same hypothesis as I do, because one time he saw a World War I airplane painted in bright red with little bitty wings. It didn't have a propeller, didn't have a pilot, floating basically like 100 feet above him. And then he says, that's impossible. This thing cannot fly. And then he realized that this was a projection, a holographic projection. And Dr. Jacques Vallée alluded to that in several of his books, and Edgar Mitchell as well. And so my experiences have been very diverse. It started back in March of 2012 with my wife praying all night for an angel to heal our dog, who was totally paralyzed. And so what happened was, and this angelic being, this transparent being of energy, appeared right in front of me, and put me to sleep, and made my wife disappear right in front of me. And so when I woke up, the dog was running around the entire living room, a dog that we were going to be euthanizing later that afternoon. And then my wife began to pray at night. These huge UFOs would appear, very up close. And then she began to have tons of precognitive experiences, which I won't go into details because it's just so many. And then she began to see beings, as well. And so my next experiences began 6 months later when I called down my very first, I call them consciousness aerial phenomenon, CAP, instead of UFOs, because these are consciousness-based phenomena. So
I like that term.
Yeah, and I used it in my book, A Greater Reality, and in my article, The Mind of God, which is a separate book. It's 200 pages, which is available for free. All these things are for free from our website. And so, and then another experience, I'm skipping over tons of things, but then another experience happened when I was driving my car in the middle of a freeway at 8:30 in the morning, in the middle of a traffic jam, and all of a sudden, my consciousness was taken to another reality. And there I was shown exactly what I'm doing now, the relationship between consciousness and the contact modalities. And very, very detailed. It lasted for quite a while. And then and I was brought right back to the car with any missing time. I was literally taken outside of space and time. And so that same afternoon, I got an email from Mary Rodwell, which I never met before, because I'd sent her an email 6 months before in October of 2012. So this experience was May of 2013. And the email went like this. It said, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry I'm responding to an email you had sent me 6 months ago, but it just popped up on my email just a few hours ago." So it was literally held up in cyberspace for 6 months until I had that out-of-body experience. And
Yes.
then we spoke for about, my goodness, like 3 hours. And then at 1:30 in the morning, I said, "Look, Mary, I got to go to work tomorrow. Can we continue this tomorrow?" And she said, yes. So the next day at 9:30 in the morning, I got a phone call. "Hello, is this Ray Hernandez?" I said, "Yes, who's this?" Dr. Rudy Shields. I had no idea who this man was, okay? He eventually became the co-editor of all of my books and became one of the co-founders of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. And Rudy was a recently retired emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, the only professor that stood up to the inquisition of Dr. John Mack at Harvard, okay? And so this man was calling me at 9:30 in the morning, and we spoke at length, and then he said, Ray, write this number down, this telephone number down. So I wrote it down. And he says, this is the telephone number of my mentor. So I said, well, I'm thinking, who the hell could be this guy's mentor? He's a professor at Harvard of astrophysics. So I said, who's your mentor? And he says, Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He says, I'm going to give him a call immediately after this, because what you had was a download of Edgar Mitchell's quantum hologram theory of consciousness, which is a very sophisticated physics-based theory of the nature of our reality. And so I waited like about 4 hours to give Edgar a call, because I knew who he was. He was very, very famous. And so finally, when I called him, he said that Rudy had spoken with him. They had like a 2-hour conversation. And he said, Ray, what are you doing tomorrow? He said, well, I'm working. He says, can you take the day off? I said, sure. He said, can you come by my house? You only live an hour and a half away. And he lived in Palm Beach County, and I lived in Miami-Dade County. And so, can you be here at 10 o'clock in the morning? I said, sure, of course. So I was there the entire day with Edgar. And eventually, over time, I was at his home more than 20 different times. Edgar became one of the co-founders of what eventually came to be called the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, together with Mary Rodwell and Rudy Shields. And from that foundation of 4 people, we began to develop this concept of doing the world's first comprehensive academic statistical research study of UFO contact experiencers. And so all of a sudden, little by little, we had people like Kathleen Martin, Barbara Lamb, Leo Sprinkle, we had Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and lots of individuals at that level, and a whole bunch of academic professors that were interested in the topic. And we all joined forces as one group, and we began to develop the research methodology. We then administered the various surveys that we developed. And then by the end of 5 years, we had published 2 academic articles that were published in 2 academic journals. And we published that 820-page book, which the vast majority of individuals in ufology have totally ignored, materialist ufology. The reason why is because we got that word consciousness in our title. Mm-hmm. The title is Beyond UFOs, the Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. And as you know, Margie, when these materialists hear that word consciousness, they run like it's a plague, because they've never been exposed to what the hell it actually means.
They're strictly left brain, and they've been trained in certain areas, and everything else doesn't exist to them. And there are a few who will cross over, who want to know more about it because they're curious, because they know there's a missing link to all of this. Why do some people have these experiences and others don't? And to that question, we've got a question in the chat. Do you think that ancestry has anything to do with the people you will study? I think he's thinking about DNA,
Okay, we did several questions on blood work, and we showed that the blood that people self-described that they had was the normalcy curve of blood work in the U.S. and around the world. So it's not like, RH negative and stuff like that. No, we totally dispelled that rumor. That was a false rumor. In terms of DNA, we didn't ask any questions on DNA because, we're not able to substantiate people's DNAs and put it in a DNA bank. That involves, lots of money. And so we never pursued that. Now, what I think is happening is that what we know, we ask various questions about family. Has your parents, have they had these experiences? Brothers and sisters, okay? Grandparents. And it's difficult for grandparents, because a lot of people, their grandparents have died. But yes, their grandparents, a very large percentage, have had these paranormal experiences. Certainly their brothers and sisters. And the highest percent was their children. Okay, if their parents are having these things, the children are going to have it. Like in my case, my daughter. So yes, I can state that unequivocally that we did ask those survey questions regarding the parental heritage of children, of siblings, brothers and sisters, and of grandparents. And yes, that link is there.
Okay. Well, we have to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more with Ray Hernandez. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back with, you're listening to Onyx News, and I'm your host, Margie Kay. My guest this evening is Ray Hernandez. Ray, I wonder what your future plans are. Are you going to do any more surveys, or are you going to go back and survey the people that already took your surveys?
Yes, I mean, that's, I've had a couple of hiccups over the last 2 years, a lot of personal hiccups. I've just recently retired. Previous to that, I was a full-time IRS tax attorney, extremely busy. I've now, retired. I permanently moved to Colombia. My life is a lot less hectic, and I could settle down back to this work. And what I'm going to be doing, as a matter of fact, this last 2 weeks, I've been having individual conference calls, and I think you and I were scheduled for a call a couple of days ago. And I've been sending individuals the proposal that we had from our last CCRI group meeting. Of most of them were professors and a couple of medical doctors. A proposal of how do we move forward with this research agenda of individuals that are major experiencers of the contact modalities. People like we've been talking about before, people like yourself, Margie, And so it's a 55-page document, very detailed. It has input from 12 individuals. And so what we want to be able to do is reform again the organization and continue with how do we go about doing formal academic research on this phenomenon. As you can see, our website is agreaterreality.com. Please go to the website, agreaterreality.com. All of my books are free for you to upload as PDF files, and including, it's a lot of reading, The Greater Reality book series is 2 volumes. Each volume is 800 pages. Okay, and that's it right there in front of you. The first 2 volumes are theoretical in nature. These are academic articles. Volumes 3 and 4 are going to be experiencer articles. I know that you wrote an article for volume 3 of our book. Right here in front of everyone here is the book Beyond UFOs, and that was published in 2018. And what gets these materialist ufologists all shook up was that word consciousness in there, the science of consciousness. But as I said before, we're the only game in town. No one has done that before and after. Now, the mind of God, that was the introductory article for the 1,600 pages of A Greater Reality, but it turned out to be 200 pages, very lengthy, very detailed. And so what the hell, I'll make it as a separate book if people want to read the book, but it's free. You can access that book from our website. And so the article is, you'll see it there, introduction, you'll see my name, you'll see the mind of God. And what that is basically an introduction to all of these concepts of the contact modalities. And by the way, that term, the contact modalities, I coined that term immediately after I had that out-of-body experience that I told you about. I wrote an article for the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation website. And the article was titled, if I believe, Consciousness and the Contact Modalities, and the Quantum Hologram Theory of Consciousness. I integrated Dr. Edgar Mitchell's theory within that article. And so now that term contact modalities, I'm hearing it all over all the time. As a matter of fact, there have been a couple of books published with the term the contact modalities. And I hope they've given me credit for it, but that's not important. The importance is that the term is being used because people have to understand that all of this paranormal phenomenon needs to be seen as one integrated phenomenon and not as separate and distinct. Like the ufologists, the materialists, they just UFOs. What the hell does out-of-body experience have to do with UFOs? Well, we determined in our research that 80% of the people who have seen UFOs have had out-of-body experiences. That's the relationship, okay? You would have read the book, you would have known. If you would have talked to major contact experiences, I'm sure you've had out-of-body experiences. I've had out-of-body experiences. All the people we previously mentioned here have had that. So it's extremely common once you've had these experiences. And same thing with the NDE folks. A lot of NDE folks, what the hell does UFOs have to do with NDEs? What does out-of-body experiences have to do with NDEs? We know that the out-of-body experience is the initial stage of an NDE, but there's tons of people that have never died. They never had an NDE, and they're popping out of their body all the time, going to other dimensions and stuff. So they say, what the hell does that have to do with an NDE? So it's not just the UFO folks. It's the whole range of people that are studying the contact modalities. So what we're focusing on is 2 major components as 2 theoretical constructs in our book. Almost every author in that book, in the theoretical chapters, agrees with these 2 hypotheses, okay? And you'll see those names. These are all very famous names that are chapters in there. Number 1, almost all of them believe that consciousness is fundamental, okay? That means that our reality is not physical reality, what we perceive it to be. It's a, for lack of a better term, it's an illusion, okay?
Right.
And then we have articles by Tom Campbell, who's a physicist there, who goes out of his body into astral realms for the last 40 years. He was Robert Monroe's guinea pig, for lack of a better word. And so he explains that. Dr. Joseph Burks explains that. In my book, The Mind of God, I explain that, and tons of other articles in our book talks about, is consciousness fundamental? We have about 4 or 5 articles in that book just on that topic. And then the second thesis that almost all of these academics and medical doctors adhere to is the concept that all of the contact modalities needs to be studied as one integrated phenomenon, and not as separate and distinct phenomena, okay? It's one phenomenon. And the experiencers are the key to this, because you talk to every major contact experiencer, they've had everything and the kitchen sink, and so they're proof that you need to be studying this from a much more complex perspective. And you're a case example, Margie.
Well, indeed. And I think one of the biggest problems that I've encountered when I go to different types of conferences is people are very frustrated when people don't want to discuss how these things are related. Paranormal events, metaphysical events, the consciousness, UFOs, Sasquatch. There are people who want to stay in one area with blinders on and not perceive that all of this stuff is related and there is a connection, and it is the individual who is responsible for these things. It's not something external.
Correct.
It's something within us.
Correct. And I discussed that in detail, how that mechanism might work, because none of us has the answer to all these things. But I have a proposed mechanism of how this mechanism works, this complexity. But our book, A Greater Reality, all 1,600 pages, it's like a talking encyclopedia of all the contact modalities. And we go into all aspects of consciousness. It's an educational tool, okay? And it's not written to a certain highfalutin level where no one can understand it. Yes, it's written in intellectual jargon and a little bit more sophisticated, but the average person can certainly read every article that's there. The most difficult article is an article by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, which initially I had to read it 3 times, okay? It's not an easy read, okay? But yet on the 3rd time, it was like, okay, I got it, okay? But most of the other articles are not like that. These are easy reads, okay? And please, everyone, go to our website, agreaterreality.com. All of the material there is free. And my email, if you want to chat with me or if you want additional information, is just put info at in the beginning of that. So it's info at agreaterreality.com. And if you want to receive these individuals individually, the entire books as PDF files, I'll send you all of my books as PDF files. These things are not meant for me to make $5 a book, or $2 or $3 a book. No, these things are meant to be free for everyone to have. Now, if someone wants a hard copy from Amazon or a paperback copy from Amazon, then you got to go to Amazon and buy it, because I don't print them out. Amazon charges for the printing. But if you want to be able to get educated, I'm offering the PDF copies for free. So email me at info@agreaterreality.com.
Well, Ray, that's very generous of you to share this information and make it free so that everybody has a chance to examine it. And I will say that there's so much information in these books that you can't come away without learning something new.
Oh, there's tons of information. Yeah. If someone really is interested, Margie, really interested, all right, all the answers are there. At least answers in terms of getting some preliminary information of what the hell this craziness is all about, okay? No one has the answers to all of this, okay? Oh, someone said about Audible. No, we don't have it in Audible, any of the books in Audible. We have it in, what do you call it, ebooks on Amazon. I forgot what those are called.
The Kindle books.
The Kindle books, we have Kindle books. So people can read it in their tablets and things of that sort, but not Audible, because
they would be 3 weeks long to read.
Just each book, exactly. Each book is 800 pages.
Yeah. It's a little bit crazy. There are, the reason I asked earlier about having another survey done with people who were involved in the first surveys is because I know this has happened to several people, but to me as well, after I took the survey and was done with it, I remembered more things.
Oh, yes.
And then other things happened. And
correct.
And I think the main thing also that people need to realize is that this starts out slow and then it speeds up, and you have more and more experiences throughout the rest of your life, and they become more frequent and they become more intense. And so whatever happened to you 5-10 years ago, it's going to be completely different now. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what
you're totally correct. You're totally correct with that. That's most of the people that are having these experiences. And in my case, it's really weird because I had 4 years of accelerated experiences. And then I had one of my most major experiences. And after that, I was like, I talked to God and I said, okay, I give up. That's it. This is real. I'm not fighting anymore. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so after I did that and I talked to God, okay, my experiences stopped. And the reason why was because I needed to get to work with this research work, because I knew if my experience was still continuing, I would not have the mental mindset to do the work that I'm doing. Because there was a point there that I thought I was going crazy. I became an alcoholic, for a week straight. I got drunk for a week straight because I just couldn't take it, Margie. You know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I do.
I couldn't take it anymore. And that was early on with my experiences. And then once I said, that's it, I give up, I accept you, I accept these things that are going on, boom, immediately these things stopped. And I know the reason why is because it's like, Ray, you got to get to work. And because I told them, I can't be doing this work and having these experiences at the same time. It's sensory overload. It's too much, and plus I was working as a full-time IRS tax attorney at the same exact time. I was having an irritable wife, that I was dealing with, and now, thank God, I'm divorced, but it was like so much coming in at the same time.
Yeah, you had way too much happening.
Way too much. So what they did to me, I interact with God and his messengers, which I call modern angels. That's how I deal with it. Okay. And so once I told them, I said, look, you need to make these things stop, because I can't do this work if I'm being battered with all these experiences. And so all of a sudden I had one more major experience that all of a sudden I said, okay, that's it. I accept you. I understand what's going on. I accept the phenomenon, and boom, everything stopped. And that's allowed me to do all the work that I'm doing, that I've been doing for the last 4 years.
So have you had any experiences lately? Have you had anything happen?
The experiences I have now, and you know what I'm talking about, Marge, is like you walking by, someone passes you, and it's like you get this feeling, this guy's a major contact experiencer. It's like you feel his energy. And eventually I stopped the person. I said, excuse me, have we seen each other? Have we spoken before? No, I don't think so. Oh, because I thought I saw you at a paranormal conference, and that's why I said, goes, well, I haven't gone to any paranormal conferences, but I did see my dead mother, and since I saw my dead mother, I've seen a whole bunch of other dead people in my house, so that's how the conversation rolls, and that happens to me like once every 3 months, but it happens all the time. So that's what I mainly get now. These very subtle things, but before it was like, boom, there's a being in front of you. You're going out of your body. You're going to another reality, crazy shit that you just can't deal with, And so, but that was like constant. It was constant. It wasn't like once every 2 or 3 months. It was like every couple of days, there was something else, something else, something else, something else. And I've been there and done that. I don't need that anymore,
Right. You have an understanding of it. And so therefore now you need to move on to other things.
I need to move on.
Get that.
Correct. Yeah.
I do understand that. In where you are now in Colombia, what is the energy like there? What does it feel like to you? Is this a positive place?
Oh, extremely positive. Extremely positive. The people here, they salute you. They engage with you in the street. Good morning, sir. How are you? Total strangers, People in the elevator, everyone in the elevator says, how are you? How's been your day? And everyone is like that. Everyone is happy. They have salsa music all the place. You go to restaurants, they got romantic Latin music going on. Other places, like for lunch, they got this salsa music going, all happiness music to uplift you. The people here are not negative people. They're very, very positive. And then I've met a few major experiencers here as well. One is the son of the owner of one of the major medical clinics here in Barranquilla. And so he and this other doctor friend of mine, who Cuban like I am, lived in Barranquilla for 20 years. He now lives in Houston. He's going to be retiring here. They're going to be setting up a major conference in Colombia. They said they know lots of university professors, lots of deans in universities that are interested in this topic and the topic of consciousness. And he says, I'd be surprised how many people are interested in these topics, because they know these people, but I'm totally clueless. So I know here, my work is going to continue here in Latin America. I've been invited to 2 major conferences focusing on the same thing I'm doing, the relationship between consciousness and the contact modalities. One in Chile, one in Brazil. And then this one that's starting up in Colombia. So my work is beginning to to be expanded, on a worldwide basis. And we're going to be continuing with this worldwide formal academic research study that I just described earlier.
It sounds like you're in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
And typically, I mean, in ufology, we know that Latin America is very open-minded to this subject. And they will report UFOs nightly on TV.
Yeah, and also one other point, Margie, is you sit down to dinner with these people, and a conversation could be, "Oh, I saw my mother again last night," and her dead mother. So it's like normal part of the conversation. It's accepted within the culture, But in the U.S., a lot of these topics are all taboo. They're still taboo. But in Latin America, they still have that culture of spirits, of angels, of communication with the deceased. These are all common topics.
And celebrating the Day of the Dead.
Celebrating the Day of the Dead. All of these concepts in Latin America, they're very much open to these things. But in the U.S., it's like, this Protestant tradition of taboo topics still remains,
Can you go into a little detail about what this book is about?
Okay. The Mind of God is an introduction to the 1,600 pages of my book, A Greater Reality. The first section, I describe maybe 3 or 4 pages for each of the different sections. For example, Dr. Jeffrey Kripal, a professor of religion and philosophy at Rice University, he wrote the prologue. Then the next chapter in there is an article by Dr. Melinda Greer, the major experiencer who just retired as a medical doctor at a major children's hospital in Oklahoma. And so she wrote a chapter about her experiences. And I use that as an example of a major experiencer that's had everything, okay? And so then we get into there's a whole series of articles titled The Primacy of Consciousness and the Contact Modalities. And there, I believe it's like 4 or 5 articles that discuss this concept of the primacy of consciousness. And then we get into this topic of what is non-local consciousness, what is telepathy, and its relationship to the contact modalities. And we have several articles that focus on the work of Dr. Edgar Mitchell and the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is the world's leading academic research institute on the psi phenomenon. And then we have several of the godfathers of the NDE research. We have Raymond Moody. We have Dr. Bruce Gordon. My goodness, I'm screwing up the name. My Alzheimer's is kicking in. He's the major NDE researcher in the world. And so we have like 3 or 4 articles on NDEs. For out-of-body experiences, we have like 2 or 3 articles on out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and astral travel experiences. And then we have only 1 article that we have on lucid dreams. And then we have about 3 or 4 articles on the topic of ghosts, spirits, and spiritual transformation. And then we have 2 academic articles. One was written by a professor from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. And another one was a professor at the University of London. These are 2 individuals that are been researching entheogens, ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, etc., LSD, for many, many years, especially that professor from Johns Hopkins. And both of these articles compare near-death experiences to hallucinogenic journeys. They're saying a hallucinogenic journey under DMT or ayahuasca is almost exactly the same as a near-death experience. So these are written by people that specialize in hallucinogenic journeys and these drugs, okay? And so then we have the next chapter. We have 11 chapters focusing on CAPs, consciousness aerial phenomenon, otherwise known as UFOs. So it's 11 articles discussing why UFOs are actually a consciousness-based phenomenon. And then we have about 5 articles that are conclusionary articles. So my book starts off as a synopsis of each of these articles. And then I go into this whole topic of why are all of these experiences happening now, okay? All these experiences began to circulate on a worldwide basis in numerous languages all around the world okay, within 5 years of each other, okay? I won't go into those details. And then the reason I state why now was because humanity has reached the point of self-extinction, self-destruction, okay? And I go into those details in my book. And we're heading towards that path. I mean, humanity is going to be thinned by billions of people, okay? There's going to be a rebooting of humanity. That's inevitable. And then the next topic area is the topic of what is consciousness. And we go into basic fundamental concepts within the field of philosophy, the mind-body problem, the neuroscience of consciousness, and what quantum physics has to say about consciousness. And then we go into this topic of a brief history of idealism, focusing on the question of is consciousness primary? And we go through the shamanic tradition, the Vedanta or the Upanishad tradition, the Buddhist tradition, Egyptian tradition, the Greek and Roman tradition, the shift to Cartesian dualism, and then finally the concept of monism and the critique of physical monism. These are all philosophical terms. And then my most important chapter, I think, is the topic discussing the commonalities of the contact modalities. I go through 11 different commonalities. The first one we alluded to earlier, that all of these contact modalities involves a manipulation of space-time, okay? OBEs involves a manipulation of space-time. Astral travel, manipulation of space-time. Remote viewing, a manipulation of space-time. Near-death experiences, manipulation of space-time, okay? Ghosts and spirits, seeing a dead person, a manipulation of space-time. Ufology, okay? The CAP, the consciousness aerial phenomenon, involves a manipulation of space-time. And we were clearly able to demonstrate that unequivocally in our book, Beyond UFOs. So then I discussed 10 additional ones, which we don't have the time to discuss in detail. I would recommend everyone go to our website, upload the book, The Mind of God, so you begin to be educated about these concepts. And then I finished with the concept of reincarnation, introducing the concept of reincarnation, the work of Dr. Ian Stevenson and Dr. Jim Tucker, who have done academic research on reincarnation. And then I focus on ancient India, ancient Greece, the Jewish Kabbalist tradition. And all of them have had a history of reincarnation within their culture and their doctrine. And then I display graphic models of how reincarnation might work. And so that's what my book basically is all about. It's sort of like a very brief overview of the nature of our reality and our book, A Greater Reality. And so it's all for free, folks, okay? And this book, The Mind of God, it's only 200 pages, okay? So for some folks, it's too much. And for some books, individuals, it's not enough. So 200 pages, at least you can get through that. And then if you want to be able to read piecemeal all the different articles in our greater reality, you certainly can do that. You can upload each and every one of these articles for free from our website.
We've got a question in chat. We've got about 2 minutes left. Ray, are your books channeled from your higher angels?
Well, these books have been written by over 45 individuals. So each chapter is a separate concept written by each of these individuals. In terms of what I'm expressing in my book, The Mind of God, no, these are not channeling, okay? These are a direct result of one major experience I had. I was driving my car, like I said before, taken to another reality. I'm inside this huge, gigantic wheel. That's where we have the wheel as the symbol of the organization. And I'm inside this huge cart. And then all of a sudden, these videos are in each separate component of the wheel of the cart, okay? And then each one is a video. And then I was getting downloads with each one of what was, let's say, for example, near-death experiences, download information of what that was about. Then it would move. And then all of a sudden, it's out-of-body experiences and astral travel experiences. Then tons of information. It wasn't a voice. It was pure information. And it went through numerous of the contact modalities. And then at the end, I was given very specific instructions of what I needed to do. So it's not Ray Hernandez invented these things. No, this came from some other source. And for me, it wasn't a channeling. It was a result out of a direct astral travel experience where I was literally taken outside of space-time to another reality.
Well, Ray, this has all been fascinating, and as usual, we didn't have enough time because I know we could talk easily for at least 4 hours. But thank you so much for being a guest on the program tonight and sharing your experiences, and good luck with your future projects.
Thank you, Margie. I totally respect the work that you're doing. I admire you, and please, may God give you the fortitude to continue with this extremely important work that you're doing.
Well, certainly trying. And that's exactly why we do the UNX Network with all of these different shows. So I appreciate that, and appreciate all the work that you have done, and especially providing this for free for everybody. All right. Well, and I hope you'll come back again soon, Ray.
Yes,
We'll be in
most
touch.
certainly. You know, I have much respect for you, Margie.
Thank you. Same here. All right, this is Margie K. This was another edition of UNX News, and we'll see you here again next week.